If you've been looking for a new controller, you've definitely seen these options pop up. These are the 5 most popular pro controllers in all of gaming, and today I'm going to try all of them. We have the Scuf Reflex, the Dualsense Edge, the Gamesir, the Scuf Envision, and custom attachments. The links to every controller will be in the description, but the first one I really want to try is the Gamesir. Gamesir controllers have only recently gotten popular with their cheap pricing and great value, and the most popular Gamesir is the G7 SE. This currently sells for just $45, which is $10 to $20 cheaper than even the standard Xbox controller, but it also comes with some extra features. Most notably, Gamesir was one of the first controller companies to put Hall effect joysticks into a controller to prevent stick drift, and even though it's become more common now, this is still the cheapest Hall effect controller. The other feature this has is 2 large back buttons set in a pretty comfortable spot for your fingers to rest, and they also allow you to lock them if you prefer to play without paddles. And to pair with that, there is a slight textured grip that runs down the back of the legs and is on the bumpers and triggers. So this is a wired only controller, and right off the bat you can tell it's on the cheaper side, but if it's functional, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And there we go, first elim. My current setup on this is for my left paddle to be jump, my right paddle is set to edit. There's no options for trigger stops or a taller right stick, so the customization is limited on this, especially compared to the controllers in the rest of this video. But this controller is so popular simply because it's cheap and it's functional. I'd say it's for a very casual style of gamer, someone that just games for fun a few times a week. They're not trying to go pro and they don't want to invest too much money into gaming right now. So that leads us to the second most popular pro controller, the PS5 Scuf Reflex. For Battle Royale and FPS esports, Scufs are and have been the #1 most popular option for over a decade now, and the Scuf Reflex FPS is their most popular controller overall. Over 50% of pro Fortnite controller players use the Reflex, and the other 50% are just playing claw. So for paddles, this is far and away the favorite, and for good reason. The design is completely customizable. You can go all out on the colorway and adjust each trigger, stick, shell, and button the exact way you want. And you can do the same with the features, picking and choosing which you want and which you don't. I got mine with completely blacked out buttons in this iridescent looking shell color. I have a low dome stick on the left and a tall dome stick on the right, and these are swappable at any point with the extra thumbsticks that come with it, alongside your cable and a hard shell carrying case. The triggers have a super tight mouse click, meaning you can react faster and spam click them faster than a typical trigger, and the bumpers also have that mouse click option. The back has 4 horizontal paddles that are all remappable, and you can save 3 different profiles for 3 different games. And I have the textured rubber grip lining the back as well. Now this controller has been around for a few years. It's always been among the top pro PS5 controller options, but its biggest downfall was how often it got stick drift, especially for its price. However, Scuf has now also joined the Hall effect party, and all of their current controllers have the option to add Hall effect thumbsticks. These new thumbstick modules virtually eliminate stick drift, and so what was once Scuf's biggest drawback is not necessarily a factor anymore. What is still a factor, however, is the price. The minimum price to get every feature I just listed is $280, which does include removing the haptic feedback and the rumbles to make the controller as light as possible, because that's typically preferred for esports. The lightweight feel does make you feel faster, and there's no fatigue in your wrist if you're playing for a while. This was a good controller a few months ago, but now with Hall effects, it's a great controller. I've tried a lot of pro PS5 controllers, and in my opinion, this is the best pro PS5 controller you can get. But with that being said, it's definitely targeted towards the more serious gamers. The pros that are using these in tournaments have usually won tens of thousands of dollars from being good at the game, so buying an expensive pro controller like this is an investment into their skill. However, if gaming is your hobby and you want the best gear to excel at it, I don't think you can go wrong with the Reflex. But if you're in the PS5 controller market, chances are you've also taken a look at the Dualsense Edge. This is likely the single most popular PS5 Pro controller because while it's not cheap, it is technically less expensive than many other Pro PS5 controllers. It's also made by Sony themselves and has quite a few features. When you're actually buying it, there's no customization besides picking white or black, but it does come with a hard shell carrying case, 6 total thumbstick caps, 2 different paddle designs, a cable lock, and an actual cable. Coming from a big company like Sony, it's honestly a little surprising surprising they include so much extra, but it does allow for some customization. I set up mine with a shorter stick on the left, a taller stick on the right. There's 3 levels of trigger stops going from full press to half press to short press. There's 2 back paddle slots that are reprogrammable, which allow you to completely remove the paddles, use 2 half button paddles, or use 2 standard paddles. And originally, when this controller released in early 2023, it was the only PS5 controller that had addressed stick drift. If one of your sticks does get drift, you simply lift this paddle, buy a new module, and slide out the old modules. I do also have to give Sony credit for the detail, because you'll notice the triggers have a texture, and even the shell has a very subtle texture, which if you hold it up into the light and look at it at the right angle, there's thousands of PlayStation symbols that make up these textures, and I still think that's so cool. This controller is a little bit on the heavier side, but it's not like heavy enough to hurt your wrist or anything. And while I am still pretty decent on this controller, I think it was better in 2023. This isn't my main controller, so I can't speak personally to the stick module lifespan, but from my research, it said that an avid gamer will get 4 to 7 months of use before these modules get stick drift, and then it's $40 to replace both. That ends up essentially being an $80 per year subscription to thumbsticks, whereas newer controllers with Hall effects have gotten rid of stick drift for next to nothing. I do think there's something to be said about the overall build quality though, because to me, this feels fail-proof. Like, these types of triggers don't typically break, all the buttons are membrane, not clicky or anything, the paddles aren't really breakable. I think this is good as a sturdy controller for a casual gamer that wants to be better than average and plays a bunch of different types of variety games. For me, only having 2 paddles and pretty mediocre trigger stops turns me away, especially because I've always enjoyed these super fast-paced games like Fortnite and Call of Duty. However, it's likely that the most popular pro controller of all is actually just using your standard controller and adding attachments. This is how I got into pro controllers. It all started with a $40 attachment that just added 2 paddles to my PS4 controller. Eventually, I built it into this. A pro PS4 controller with a taller right stick, instant press clicky triggers, instant clicky face buttons, a whole controller grip, and 4 back paddles. The standard PS4 controller I already had, and then this was another $115 in attachments, but I didn't buy them all at once. And I've even built multiple pro PS5 controllers that just started out as the regular controller that comes with the PS5. Like this one, I used a standard PS5 controller with extreme rate parts to get swappable pro thumbsticks. I got a split different color D-pad, instant press clicky face buttons, instant press click triggers and bumpers. It has 4 paddles on the back, a textured grip shell, and now you can even get Hall effect modules to install too. Both of these actually have about the same amount of money in pro controller accessories on them. However, this one I didn't have to actually take my controller apart. It's simply a paddles attachment that just clamps on. This is just a trigger stop kit that stops your trigger a little shorter than the typical far press. There's grip tape on it, and then there's a control freak on it. It still gets the job done, but it doesn't have that same premium feel that a real pro controller has, and this one almost gets there to what a real pro controller feels like. All of these are still wireless and have the same durability as a regular PS5 controller. However, the blue one that has all these super cool features took like over 5 hours of installing all of the mods, and if you do make a mistake, it can completely brick your controller. If you're good at following directions and are technical enough, it is a great and fun option to get a really solid pro controller. But ironically, my main controller isn't any of the controllers I've mentioned in this video so far, because I game on PC, and while this controller isn't the most popular yet, I think it'll enter the top 5 most popular within the next couple of years. It's made by Scuf, it's called the Envision Pro, and it's built only for PC players because it runs off of customizable software where you can map keyboard and mouse binds, set trigger curves, change your stick input curves, and using that software you can also set these buttons to like macros to open up apps or set up clipping software. So you could count the software as a pro feature in itself. And then it has 4 back paddles, it has Hall effect anti-drift thumbsticks, it has 2 side buttons, it has instant mouse click triggers that also toggle to be regular triggers, it has instant clicky face buttons and the D-pad, it has a textured rubber grip on the back, and interchangeable thumbsticks. It starts at $180 for all those features. And for a game like Fortnite, I use my 4 back paddles to sprint, jump, toggle my pickaxe, and edit builds. I use my left side button to scroll wheel pick up loot to get it instantly, and I use my right side button to cycle through builds. Paired with the layout of the paddles, the instant triggers, and the sticks, this controller can't be beat for me. I think all of the controllers in this video are good, they're popular for a reason, and it ultimately depends on what your budget and preference is. But out of the 60 something pro controllers that I've tried, my number one overall is the Scuf Envision Pro. I'll link every controller I talked about in the description so you can go check them out. And now here's a video of me switching controllers every game to hit Unreal, or here's a video of my 7-year Fortnite controller progression. Drop a like and thanks so much for watching.